Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I'm Kristi Lowe. I'm your host, and I am so glad that you and I are here again this week. If it is even possible to believe, we are in July, which means that the first month of summer has already flown by, and that just blows my mind, y'all. Time is flying, right? And, it seems like yesterday we were talking on the show about control, and we were having that conversation about being control freaks, and I kept stepping on some of your toes about that. And then we've moved on this month and we've been talking about being naked and unafraid and how to live a life that is just fully immersed in everything that he holds for us. And the idea of living a life that is naked and unafraid is allowing God access to every area of our life so that he can use us in a beautiful way, and that he can restore the things that are broken, and that he can free us from anything that entangles us. And so we've been talking all month about that, and we're going to continue that series this week and next week. And then we're going to take a little break for a couple of weeks. After that, I've got some traveling that I'm going to be doing this summer with my family and a conference that I'm going to, just a couple of things. And so we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then I will be back after school starts and we will get the party started again for the fall. So I'm excited for that, but I'm also excited to talk about what we are about today, which is criticism. I was texting a couple of my friends today before I started recording, and my friend Denise and I were talking about how much fun it is to talk about criticism, namely because if you've been the recipient of it, you know that sometimes it's hard to swallow. If you have been the person who has had to give any sort of critical feedback to somebody, even if it is in a gentle and a loving way, or if it's necessary, it's hard. It's hard to give that. It's hard to do that. And often, and this is, I think, why it has been hard for me to even start recording this, is because in the back of my mind, I know how many times I myself have been critical of somebody else and how woefully incompetent I am to be the person to speak about criticism, because my tongue has gotten me in trouble so many times, y'all. I mean, I have said things I shouldn't have said, and I am pretty quick. I don't mean this like, oh, I'm trying to like pat myself on the back here, but I'm pretty quick-witted, and I can usually kind of have a comeback pretty fast, which is all well and good whenever we're just riffing and we're being funny. But if I am upset about something, that big mouth of mine can get me in trouble real fast, real fast. I have told y'all before that I think it's hilarious that God thought that giving me a microphone and letting me talk, that he has got to have such a sense of humor, because my mouth has gotten me in trouble so many times in my life. And when we are talking about criticism today, there has been a flood from the enemy of condemnation going, who do you think you are to talk about this? And so I'm entering today's conversation with you in a very, with just a humility in me to say that, man, I do not even pretend to be perfect at this. I do not even pretend to have it all under control. But the reason why I want to talk about criticism in relation to the series on being naked and unafraid and living our best, biggest, fullest life in freedom with Christ is that the criticism that comes our way can have such an impact on our lives. And I want to explore that with you a little bit today. Criticism is the thing that none of us are excited about when somebody says, hey, I think we need to talk. Like, nobody is like, ooh, yay, you're going to be critical of me. Oh my gosh, let's go. I can't wait. I mean, that's just not how it works, right? Sometimes a spouse or a child or a parent will come at you with a direct, here is what I think you're doing. I think you're doing this wrong. I think that you have tripped up here. They have given you something that is critical, and they are real direct about it. But often what I have discovered is that a lot of times criticism comes secondhand. We'll find out that somebody has spoken poorly of us, or or somebody will troll us online or talk behind our back and we'll find out about it. Or it'll just come in a passive aggressive nature that leaves us confused on how the person really feels or what the energy was behind that or the heart was behind it. And yet, it doesn't matter the form that it takes, it stings nonetheless, right? If we are going to live a life of trusting God, sometimes that's going to mean trusting Him, even if we're dealing with criticism. The reason why I think that this one is so important for us to broach and to talk about today is because I don't want anybody else to spend years sitting on the sideline if the criticism isn't merited. And you may say, well, why would you know that, Kristi? Ask that. Say, Kristi, how would you know that? Well, hey, here, true story. About 10 or 12 years ago, I was a contributing writer for a Christian organization, and it was back in the blog world's heyday, whenever blogs were kind of all the rage. And I think I've shared this with y'all before, but if I haven't, I was writing for this organization, and several times a month we would take a topic, and then my job was to take whatever that topic was and then just go a little bit deeper, like go spiritually speaking, deeper with it than just the superficial Christian, Jesus answer kind of thing. And so that was my job, and I loved it. It was a volunteer position, but it is where the seeds of writing and full-time writing began to really take root in me. I love to write. I have written several books that are not published, and I've always enjoyed that. And that was been one of the primary ways of that I have enjoyed Christian communication over the years. But anyways, I had been writing my own blog, and then I had started writing for this Christian organization, and I loved it. I mean, y'all, I loved it. Loved it. I mean, I'm starting to run with this, if that makes sense. Like, whenever like a seed gets planted in your mind and then you are like, you're taken off with it. You're like, well, and then I could do this, and then we could do this. And I'm thinking about like how I could end up I could just be a full-time writer. I mean, like I'm loving this. Okay. And so long story short, in the meantime, there's a new hire within the organization that is in charge of and above this little blog position or this part of the organization. And so I set up a meeting with the new person, and I was like, hey, listen, I would love to talk about your thoughts about the blog, how we can develop it or grow it, or if there's anything, that you want to see. Like, I have all these ideas. Here you go. And when I got there, I walk in, I close the door, and he sits down across the desk from me, and without blinking, without saying, hey, thanks for, everything you're doing or anything like that. He just says, hey, so that blog's not making a difference in anything, and we're not going to be doing that anymore. I remember just feeling the air getting sucked out of the room because this was something I loved. I thought it was making a difference. I thought that the response and the feedback I was getting, social media was a baby back then. So I was sharing some of the articles on social media. I was emailing them out to the people who followed my personal blog. I thought that based on the feedback I was getting, that it was a good thing and it was making a difference. And yet the person who was in charge of it and held authority over me said, I don't think this is making any difference whatsoever, and we're not going to do this anymore. And within 90 seconds, maybe, I think I might have been in there for 2 or 3 minutes max. I found myself on the other side of that door walking back to my car and holding back tears. The reason why this is so painful is because he may not have directly said, you suck. Excuse my language, but he may not have said that, but he said, what you're doing is not making a difference, and just shut it down. And because he was in a position of authority over me, and he was someone that I believed that he knew more than me, I believed that he knew what was best, and I believed him. When he said, that blog, your words are not making a difference, I believed him. And I let him dictate what I believed about my ability to write. Honestly, just crushed. I was crushed. I quit. I quit writing. I really did. And I know you're probably going, well, why would you just let somebody, that you barely know have that much influence over your life? Well, this was a Christian man who was in a position of authority over me. And so whenever he said, this isn't good and this is not helping anybody, I believed that what he was telling me was right. I believed that my words didn't have power. And I let somebody else besides God dictate what I believed about myself and the call that the Lord had over me to write. There are still times today, even when I sit down to write or I sit down to do this, that the words in the back of my mind, I'll still sometimes hear him say, this isn't going to make a difference to anybody. Now, the difference is that now I know that that is a lie of the enemy, and that I do not let what the enemy says, he does not get to speak into my life anymore. That doesn't mean he doesn't try, but he doesn't get that authority over me anymore. And the thing that, if I can just, before we go any further, I'm going to say this. There are men and women who are believers, they are Christians, they're walking with Christ, and they can say something that can completely upend another believer's life because they quote unquote have authority over us, or they seem like they should know what is right because of their walk with Christ. And so I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced criticism at the hands of another believer, somebody who should have known better. And if that's you, I'm so, so incredibly sorry, because I've been there. I literally quit writing for years. And a lot of it was my immaturity and my faith, but that criticism just kept rolling around in my head. And it impacted every task and even my own personal blog. Whenever I would start to try to write on my blog, I would be like, yep, this isn't going to make any difference because of what one person said about my writing. I let it have that much influence over me. And so when I tell you, like, words have power, we know that, right? So what do we do when criticism comes our way? Because I don't want it to do to you what it did to me. I fully believe that the Lord gifted me with the ability to write and sometimes to speak. Some days it's hard, but yeah, I believe that this is his call over my life. And the enemy was real quick to come in and say, oh yeah, let me see if I can thwart that real fast. And he did. When I was preparing for this, one of the Bible verses that came to mind, and I believe fully that the Lord gives me Bible verses whenever when I'm sitting with something, like whenever I'm going to be talking about something, it'll seem like there will be Bible verses that will just pop up out of nowhere. I'll be like, well, I'd never thought about that verse in regard to this. And, there's that verse in James 1:19 that talks about being quick to listen, slow to speak, and then slow to become angry. And, I'd always thought about that just in terms of just, when something happens, not specifically for when we are being criticized, but I think that verse applies so perfectly for when we are being criticized. Are we quick to listen? Are we slow to speak? Are we slow to become angry? Because let's just be real with right now. Nothing like nothing evokes anger or emotion in us faster than when somebody comes at us and wants to talk about something that they think we're doing wrong. Okay. Am I right? Do you know what I mean? Like it can get our hackles up real fast, especially if they come at you and they're like, hey, by the way, I think the way you're parenting is wrong. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You tell me how I'm parenting wrong. Right. I mean, there are anytime we have somebody say something to us about something that we think we're doing really well with, that's typically when that quick to get angry part of me, yeah, it jumps up real fast. I'm just going to be honest. Was trying to think about how to show you and show me because I learn just as much in this as you guys do, right? We're talking about criticism, and when we're talking about the criticism that comes our way, how do we handle it in a way that actually helps us? Okay. So the reason why I say that is because some criticism is necessary and it is merited and it is rooted in something that somebody is trying to help you get back on track. And if you don't have anybody that will tell you when you're off track, you need new friends because a real friend will be honest with you. When you're off the rails, you need those friends and those family and loved ones that will tell you when you are not on the right track, when you have gotten out of line, or when you have started making decisions just that aren't beneficial, or anyways. I'm just saying you have got to have those people in your lives, okay? But here's the thing. It's not always going to be criticism or critical information that comes our way that we need to hold. So how do we do that? The thought I had was actually when I was standing in the produce section at the grocery store last week, and there were dragon fruit and there was a jackfruit. Have y'all ever seen a jackfruit? Those big, huge, they're kind of like pale yellow kind of melons. Anyways, and I thought about how this is silly, but think of handling criticism like you would strange fruit you have never encountered. Okay? Go with me here just for a second, okay? What will you do if you find a fruit you have never seen before? Now, if you can let your imagination run wild here. Do you want to let it be in the grocery store, or do you want to be like in the jungle in Bolivia? I don't know if there's jungles in Bolivia, but it seems like there should be. So, hey, there we go. We'll go with Bolivia. Wherever you are, whenever you encounter this brand new fruit that you have never seen before, how are you going to handle that fruit? Are you just going to eat it without regard? Are you just going to pick it up and eat it? And I mean, like, before you even know anything about it? No, of course you're not. What are you going to do? And the thought I had was when I saw the jackfruit in the grocery store, because, I live my little primitive life here, I picked it up and I was holding it. And I remember there was a little bit better light. Like there was like a skylight. You know how like the skylights in this grocery store, they use them to try to like help. Anyways, so I moved it so that I could get it into the light better, so I could look at it and so I could see it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is how we need to handle criticism. We hold it up into the light. Before you bit into a new piece of fruit that you had never seen, you would check it out carefully. Like, do I peel back the brown floppy, pieces of leaves? Do I eat those leaves? Is this one like an apple that I bite, or is it like a banana that I need to peel? Is this a melon that I need to cut? How do I need to handle this? You would examine it fully. That's how we look at criticism. We hold it up to the light. We say, Lord, is this true? Lord, is this fair and kind? And even if it's not kind, is it true? Is what this person's saying true? And are they coming to me from a place that is in line with God's word? And are they in line with God's spirit? Have they prayed into this, or are they just speaking out of pocket? Are they really, do they have my best interest in mind, or are they just angry or jaded or jealous or petty? You know, as the old saying goes, consider the source. I think that that's true here. When we're holding this up to the light and we're saying, okay, Lord, what do you say about this? Is this somebody you trust? Ask yourself this. Do they have your best intentions at heart? Is this the person you would seek out for advice? Like, is this somebody that you would go to and say, hey, I've got a problem here and I don't know what to do with it? Is this the kind of person who has prayed over this? You know, we don't have any control over what people say to us, but we can control how we respond. And notice that I said respond and not react. Because if we are slow to speak and slow to get angry and we're quick to listen, that means that we're taking the time to try to figure out, like, what does this really, really mean? And is this something that I really need to embrace? Or is this something I need to pass on? You have an assignment today. I always love whenever we can have assignments, right? I want you to think about any criticism that may have come your way recently or in the past that maybe you rejected it initially. And I want you to take that to the Lord this week. And I want you to hold it up to the light and just say, okay, Lord, what do you want to do with this? Or even maybe that's not you. Maybe that's not where you are right now. Maybe you haven't received any criticism recently from somebody else, but there is criticism in your mind. Maybe it is you. You are your own worst critic. And I know some of you, and I love you deeply, but you are your own worst critic. And I can say that because I have been there and done that too. So there is no judgment whatsoever. The Lord wants us to embrace all that he holds for us and to live naked and afraid. And to live naked and unafraid means to build a framework that helps us move past unmerited criticism. Okay? If it is merited, and if it is something that we need to take in and we need to absorb and say, oh, dang it, you're right, I was off here. You know, if that is what you need to do, then you need to take a beat and go deal with that. But if it is unmerited criticism, I do not want it to sideline you like it did me. I do not want you to believe the lie of the enemy, because all the enemy did was twist a little bit. He used somebody that said that blog was really not impactful. And what the enemy did was he said, it really was you that wasn't impactful. He took it and he twisted it. What I know now, it was that guy wanted to go in a different direction, and he maybe didn't have the right tools to communicate that. But the enemy saw the opportunity to go, I think I can get her on the sidelines. I think I can use this to crush her hopes and her dreams. And maybe I can keep her from ever writing again. Well, he tried real hard, but he didn't win. Anytime, this is the secret. Okay, you ready for the secret here today? Anytime we walk according to the Lord's plan for our lives, anytime we are being obedient and faithful and walking this out the way he wants us to, the enemy is right there. He wants to trip us up. And sometimes all it takes is one thoughtless or unkind word from someone we respect. Don't let the enemy have a seat at your table, my friend. I believe it's Louis Giglio that said that. The enemy doesn't get invited for coffee. You don't invite the enemy to go out to lunch with you. That's only for those whose voices we trust. We only invite in what is trustworthy and kind and who else is in line, or we should be praying through and walking this out the way that we are. Handling criticism, it's going to come at us. And we know that, right? We know criticism is going to come. But handling it, the way we handle it with being slow in our roll, taking a beat, and then pausing and going, okay, let me hold this up to the light. Let me examine this. That involves discretion and discernment and some wisdom, honestly, and holding it up before the Lord and saying, okay, Lord, this is what this person said to me, and this kind of hurt. Was this true? Is this something you needed me to hear? Or, Lord, do I need to let this go by? And only by taking it to the Lord can you ensure that you're going to handle the criticism in the way that He wants you to. I believe that our lives get bigger and smaller in direct proportion to how we handle criticism. When I was unhealthier and whenever I was younger, when I was younger, when I was younger in my walk, I let that upend me so deeply, so quickly, just, without, and for so far too long, it just upended me totally. And I don't want that to happen to you. And so I think the way that the framework we build around how to handle criticism is vital for us as believers. Father, thank you so much for just the gift of your wisdom and your discernment. Father, what I find so beautiful is that you so intimately wire us. And Father, I just lift up to you that each of us are going to face criticism. I'm praying, Father, that the way that we handle it is by taking it straight to you. Father, that we go straight to you with all of our concerns and all of the things that come at us, Father, even the ones that are in our mind, the critical voice in our head, Father. I pray that whether it be coming from the outside or the inside, Lord, that we would take it to you, that we would let you examine it and tell us how we should go about it. Father, give us wisdom in these places. Teach us more and more about how we can walk in this life naked and unafraid and embrace each of the areas of our lives, Lord, that you have called us to walk in freedom. It is in your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. I hope wherever this finds you today, whether you are living your best life, as they say, or you're struggling to get by right now, I hope you know you are so deeply loved by God, and that even if you're dealing with criticism, or especially if you're dealing with critical people in your life, He wants so very badly to be there right beside you and to help you and to give you clarity in all of it. I always appreciate our time together. I do not ever take it for granted. So thanks for being here, and good Lord willing, I'll see you again next week.